2,000 years ago, a single Roman gold coin could buy you a fine horse, a cloak woven from the best wool, and even a night under a solid roof. That same gold coin, if you held it in your hand today, would still buy you all of that and more. Now, take one US dollar bill. It feels light, smooth, almost fragile. But that piece of paper, once powerful, once trusted across the entire world, today, it can barely buy you a cup of coffee. So here's the question no one really asks. How did we go from gold that held value for millennia to paper that loses value every single year? And more importantly, what does that say about the future of America's money? Because this isn't just a story about Rome. It's a story about us. Back in ancient Rome, gold wasn't just currency, it was confidence. When a Roman held an aureus, they were holding wealth itself. It had weight. It had shine. It was something you could trust, no matter where you traveled across the empire. A Roman soldier could march across deserts or seas, step into a market in Egypt or Greece, and the gold coin in his hand meant the same thing everywhere: value. It was real, tangible, incorruptible. But as Rome grew, as its cities expanded, armies multiplied, and emperors demanded more, that golden promise began to crack. Wars drained the treasury. Palaces devoured silver. The empire wanted more, but gold is finite. You can't print it. You can't fake it. And that's when Rome did something that would change history forever. They started to cheat. At first, it was subtle. They began to mix the gold coins with cheaper metals, copper, tin, even lead, but kept the same stamp of the emperor's face. To the naked eye, nothing looked different. But underneath, the value was dying. Over the next decades, Roman coins lost their purity, from nearly 100% gold to barely a trace. Prices began to rise. Merchants lost trust. Soldiers demanded more pay. And to satisfy them, the government minted even more diluted coins. Sound familiar? Because what Rome did with gold, we do with paper. The only difference? Rome used metal. We use ink. In those final years, inflation ripped through the empire. A loaf of bread that once cost 1 coin could now cost 50. Citizens hoarded what little gold they had, refusing the fake coins altogether. And when the people stopped trusting their money, they stopped trusting their leaders. The empire didn't fall because of swords or invasions. It fell because its money lost meaning. Now, fast forward 2,000 years. A new empire rises, the United States of America. A nation built on innovation, industry, and one symbol that came to define global trust: the US dollar. At first, it was strong, backed by gold, just like Rome's coins once were. Every dollar printed represented real gold locked away in a vault, usually in Fort Knox. If you wanted, you could walk into a bank, hand over a $20 bill, and they'd give you real gold in return. Money was honest. It meant something. But just like Rome, America's ambitions began to outgrow its gold. Wars had to be funded. First World War I, then World War II, then Vietnam. Factories needed rebuilding, global influence had to be maintained, and promises kept. And slowly, quietly, the balance began to shift. By the 1960s, America's spending was exceeding what its gold reserves could back. Foreign nations started demanding gold for their dollars. The system was collapsing. And then, in 1971, President Richard Nixon made the most consequential financial decision in modern history. He ended the gold standard. From that moment on, the dollar was no longer tied to gold. It became what economists call fiat currency, money that has value only because the government says it does. It was paper, backed not by gold, not by silver, but by trust. And at first, it worked. America's economy kept growing. People had jobs, homes, cars, and credit. The dollar became the world's reserve currency. But here's the uncomfortable truth. The moment we cut our ties to gold, we repeated Rome's mistake. Because now, money could be printed endlessly. And when something can be created without limit, its value can vanish just as fast. In the 50 years since, the United States has printed trillions. Debt has climbed past $30 trillion. Inflation, once considered a distant worry, now quietly eats into every paycheck, every grocery bill, every savings account. You see, gold doesn't care about politics. It doesn't change with elections. But paper bends to whoever holds the pen. And just like Roman emperors stamped their faces on coins to project confidence, modern leaders print more dollars to project stability. But confidence can't be printed. Today, 1 ounce of gold, once worth $35 in 1971, now trades for over $2,000. That's not gold getting richer. That's the dollar getting weaker. And yet, most people never question it. Because the system is designed to make you feel like everything's fine, that inflation is normal, that debt is manageable, that more money equals progress. But ask yourself this. If gold, the same gold used by Roman emperors, still holds value after 2,000 years, and the dollar has lost more than 90% of its value in just 50, which one really deserves your trust? It's a haunting question, because deep down, we know the answer. The same forces that drove Rome to devalue its coins, greed, war, and control, are the same forces driving America's money today. Every empire believes it's different, until it can't. And maybe that's why gold is making a quiet comeback. While paper burns under inflation, gold remains unshaken. Central banks around the world, including China, Russia, and even the US itself, are buying gold again. They're not saying it out loud, but they know. They know that trust in the dollar isn't eternal. They know the same cracks that appeared in Rome's economy are forming again, just hidden behind technology, credit, and screens. Because here's the truth. The empire always falls slowly, then all at once. The Romans never believed their currency could collapse. Neither do we. But history doesn't care about belief. It only cares about repetition. So what happens next? Can the dollar survive another century? Or are we already in the slow-motion replay of Rome's final act? Gold is patient. It's seen kingdoms rise and crumble, currencies vanish, and promises fade. It doesn't need faith. It is faith, stored in metal. Paper money depends on belief. Gold simply exists. And maybe that's the secret the Romans learned too late, and the one we're still ignoring. Because as the cost of living rises, as savings lose power, and as dollars buy less with each passing year, people are beginning to realize something profound, that maybe, just maybe, we replaced the eternal with the temporary. Rome replaced gold with alloy. We replaced gold with paper. And now, with digital money, we're replacing paper with code. Each step taking us further away from real value and closer to illusion. The question is, how long can an illusion last before people start to see through it? The illusion always feels real until the moment it breaks. Rome didn't collapse overnight. It took years of small cracks, slow inflation, and quiet denial before the final crumble. And maybe that's exactly where we are right now. Think about it. Every time prices rise, we blame the market. We blame politics. We blame global events. But deep down, what we're really watching is the silent decay of the dollar's buying power. 50 years ago, a family could live comfortably on one income. Today, 2 full-time salaries barely cover the basics. The numbers keep getting bigger, but what those numbers buy keeps shrinking. That's not progress. That's dilution. And just like the Romans once clipped their coins to stretch their value, we clip our future by printing more money than ever before. It's the same story. Only this time, the empire wears a suit and tie. Yet, the biggest irony? The very thing we abandoned, gold, is quietly thriving in the background. While the US dollar struggles under the weight of inflation and national debt, gold has done the exact opposite. It's risen, slowly, steadily, silently. No headlines. No press conferences. Just time. The same ounce of gold that once bought a fine Roman tunic still buys a luxury suit today. Gold didn't change. The value of everything around it did. And that's the quiet truth most people never realize. Gold doesn't go up in value. Currencies go down. Because gold isn't a number. It's a mirror. A reflection of how much our money has fallen. In a world where everything is inflated, from rent to stocks to promises, gold remains brutally honest. But here's where things get even stranger. Governments know this. They know exactly what happens when a nation's currency loses trust. So why stick with paper money? Why not return to gold? The answer is power. Gold can't be created out of thin air. You can't inflate it. You can't legislate it into existence. And that makes it a threat, not to citizens, but to governments. Because a gold-backed system limits how much they can spend, how much they can borrow, how much they can control. Paper, or worse, digital money, gives them unlimited reach. It lets them expand without restraint, promise without delivery, and spend without consequence, at least for a while. But even emperors can't outsmart math. Eventually, the scales tip. Debt outweighs value. Confidence breaks. And the people begin to question the very thing they once worshipped, the money itself. That's what ended Rome. And that's what every empire since has faced in the end. Because money isn't just a tool, it's a story. And when the story stops making sense, people stop believing it. Now look at the world today. In America, inflation creeps higher year after year. The cost of living rises faster than wages. Savings accounts grow, but in name only. Meanwhile, the Federal Reserve prints trillions at the push of a button, flooding the system with dollars that seem to multiply endlessly. And we're told it's fine. We're told it's necessary. We're told the system is stable. But so were the Romans. When Emperor Nero first reduced the gold content in coins, his advisors said it would stabilize the economy. It didn't. It bought him time, and nothing else. Printing money doesn't solve problems. It just delays the reckoning. And if you think history won't repeat, remember this. The one constant in every empire's fall has never been the army, the borders, or the people. It's been the money. When Rome's coins lost trust, the empire fractured. When France printed its assignats into worthlessness, revolution followed. When Germany's mark collapsed after World War I, chaos filled the vacuum. And now, the US dollar, once as good as gold, is losing its weight 1 decimal point at a time. You can feel it every time you go shopping. Every time you check your bank balance. Every time you realize your savings buy less than they did just last year. We're living inside the same story, just with fancier words and better technology. But here's where the story takes a twist. Because while most people trust paper, the powerful are buying gold. Central banks across the globe, China, Russia, Turkey, India, are stockpiling gold like never before. Even as they preach confidence in fiat, they quietly return to what has always worked. Why? Because deep down, everyone knows the truth. When trust breaks, gold is the only thing left standing. It doesn't need promises. It doesn't depend on politics. It doesn't fade with time. It simply waits, patiently, for the empire to stumble again. And when it does, gold doesn't rise in glory. It simply reclaims its place. So where does that leave us? Maybe we're not watching the end of the dollar. Maybe we're just watching the end of an era. The era of believing that paper can replace substance. Rome believed it could outlive gold. America believes it can outlive trust. Both believe they were exceptions. Neither was right. But here's the haunting beauty of history. It doesn't repeat word for word. It rhymes, perfectly, painfully, poetically. And the rhythm is the same. When empires forget what value means, they eventually remember, the hard way. So next time you hold a dollar bill, remember this. It's not the paper that has power. It's the story behind it. A story built on faith, on debt, and on the hope that tomorrow, someone else will still believe it's worth something. But gold? Gold doesn't need a story. It's already written one, across thousands of years, empires, and civilizations. It's the same metal Caesar held, the same metal the pharaohs buried, the same metal your grandparents saved. Empires rise, currencies fade, but gold remains the silent witness to it all. So maybe the real question isn't whether the US dollar can survive another century. Maybe the real question is, when the story of paper finally ends, what will you be holding when the lights go out?